Welcome to the STEM Talk. In just 30 minutes each month, join experts from across the STEM landscape as they provide factual information, practical strategies, and actionable resources to help you navigate the ever-changing world of STEM education, workforce development, policy, and advocacy. Hosted by the After School STEM Hub, STEM Education Coalition, and STEM Ecosystems, the STEM Talk creates a safe space for dialogue while maintaining a focus on information that matters to you and the community that you serve. Today's episode is called Beyond the Funding because this month, the money isn't the real story, the moves are. Hello everyone, I'm Jenny Frank, the Director of the STEM Ecosystem Initiative at TIES Global. On July 21st, the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy released a report called Science, a New Golden Age. It's the administration's rethink on federal science priorities. It came with a memo that gives every federal research agency 90 days to file an implementation plan, and that clock is ticking right now. Meanwhile, the real action on AI education is happening at the state level, where waves of new bills are moving faster than anything at the federal level. Alongside that, a quieter shift on how workforce waivers are reshaping the way STEM dollars actually get used. For those of us in STEM education, that raises real questions. Where do our programs fit into this fast-moving federal picture? What does the state-level surge mean for students we serve? And what should we be doing right now, not next year, to stay ahead of the game? That is what we are unpacking today. Joining us today, we have special guest Dr. Holly Miller, Federal Liaison at NASA's Office of STEM Engagement. We also have our regular expert voices, Della Cronin from Bose Public Affairs Group, Leslie Brooke from After School Alliance, and Anita Krishnamurthy.
As Jenny prefaced, today we're going to talk about a couple of things that are going on at the federal level, some things that are going on at the state level, and then some things that are probably a combo of the two, combining federal policy and opportunities for states to take some advantage of some shifts that are happening there. The first thing we're going to talk about is this report that came out from the White House and the Office of Science and Technology Policy. They are couching it as the update to the Frontier report from Dr. Bush over, I think that was in 1945. So, the latest sort of reset on how the federal government should be investing in research and science and STEM education. We'll talk about that. Then we'll talk about what's going on at the state level. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on at the federal level and some of the challenges that lawmakers are facing in trying to address AI and AI education at the federal level. And then, as I said, we'll sort of close out with a combo of federal and state policy where we're seeing states get some leeway from the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Labor in how they might be using funds and how that could affect STEM education. Spoiler alert, there's going to be a lot of pay attention to, a lot of counsel to you to pay attention to maybe some new players in your lives at the state level in terms of governors and state education agencies and workforce development boards and others that are going to be more influential in decisions going forward and opportunities for you to make new friends if you don't already have them. So first, and there's going to be some links in the chat as we go along. A little bit on this, not a little bit, it is a big deal, this new piece from the Office of Science and Technology Policy. It really is a broad rethink of the federal science enterprise. And as we've had these monthly talks since the Trump administration has come back into office, we have sort of hinted repeatedly at this administration certainly sees the importance of an innovative economy and the workforce that will power it. But they were talking about some of the things that we share their interest in different ways. And this report certainly reemphasizes that. They want to revitalize the science and technology enterprise. And in the paper, that talks about using funding in a more agile way, and sort of a shift from talking about really supporting specific innovators and specific work around the areas that this administration prioritizes, as well as putting together what they would characterize as innovative new regional partnerships. And if you read the report, you'll see there's certainly connections to investments in manufacturing that has been a result of the CHIPS and Science Act and what can happen around there to support the country's goals. Again, this is not new. The paper reiterates the desire to remain, the world's top innovators, sort of beat China, continue to lead the way on AI, continue to invest in quantum semiconductors, advanced manufacturing, returning to a golden age of manufacturing, nuclear energy, continue to be leaders in space. These are all emphasized in the report as well. And not new to our conversations here, continue to invest in and support discovery with AI, and that includes expanding the country's capabilities, but also figuring out the workforce needs for expanding that industry and supporting the programs and institutions that help us get there. And overall, there is this, I would call it encouraging emphasis on improving Americans' lives. Also, there are references to ensuring that citizens are exposed to science and have access to museums and programs and other things that help them understand what's going on, help them become literate in AI and other technologies that are coming and will be transformative to the economy and everyday life. So I would say that there are some things that are familiar in here about making sure that federal research dollars support the national interest, making sure that we are investing federal dollars in industries that fuel our economy, make our country successful. But I think that the opportunity for us as STEM education advocates is to continue to reframe our work and our goals as very supportive of the goals that are being laid out in this report. As Jenny said, they are moving fast on this front. For those of us who are policy wonks in Washington, D.C., we know that agencies are always thinking about funding, and it's clear that the White House wants this paper and its goals to influence its budget requests for next year. And yes, I'm aware that we haven't passed any spending bills for this year, but that doesn't mean that agencies won't be tasked with thinking about how their next budget request is going to look. And so agencies are thinking about how the goals of this paper will affect their requests from OMB to fund the programs that they're working on. So from an advocacy perspective, if you are a person who has connections with the Office of Management and Budget or with folks on Capitol Hill who talk to the Office of Management and Budget, there's an opportunity to connect your work to the goals of this paper and then with the programs that exist and make sure that you're saying, hey, we can be on board, are definitely on board with this vision. Here is how we are supporting the goals of this paper. And these are the programs that we think can be continue to support those goals. And then, the programs, there is a way that that paper speaks about researchers and STEM talent and what we do to prepare people to be successful in STEM careers that's a little different. And I think that we should, if we're going to be making the point that we're connected and want to be a part of this effort, we've got to take that to heart. We want to make sure that our STEM education investments don't look disconnected from the science missions, that we are partners in discovery, partners in creating this important workforce. So also, take to heart the administrations and others. It's not just them, Republicans, industry, others who are saying, we really need to have these skills, and maybe 4-year degrees are not the way that we're going to get them. We need to think about alternative ways to get there. Is that apprenticeships? Is that 2-year programs? Is that micro credentials? We all have had these conversations. It's a complicated sea of opportunities, but it's clear that the 4-year degree is not the only way to get there. And I think that when we talk to folks in the agencies, we need to be aware of that, and also about the very, the very way that informal science, after school, out of school spaces absolutely connect with those goals, because we know that it's those spaces that often are where the sparks are for populations that do not really get it in traditional academic settings. And so I think there is opportunity in that, and we just need to continue to say that we are with you, we share the same goals, and let me tell you how. So just more of how informal science can be a player and a partner in this. We certainly talk about hands-on experimentation in the spaces that we work in, exposing people to scientific instruments, using these community centers that often are the home base for after-school programs or before-school programs or summer learning opportunities, getting community involved. I think career awareness is something that we have certainly embraced in our spaces, but making sure that the folks that we work with in federal circles know that that's the case. I'm not sure that they do. And that we're trusted partners. We are there. We have the relationships. We can be helpful in the work that the federal government wants to do. So we are not different. We're not separate from the goals of the research enterprise than this administration. We are partners. We are infrastructure for them. We are infrastructure for talent, for expanding the country's technical capability and public access to American science, and we need to convey that message. Okay, so I feel like that was a big, heavy topic. This one's a little less so. We've been talking about AI and how it's been a priority from a policy perspective, but really, really complicated. And sometimes the folks who are trying to make laws about it, I would argue, don't understand the technology and its potential or its limitations. So I would say, we're going to talk about the state level, but states are definitely moving faster than Congress. Honestly, that's not so hard to do these days, but Congress is trying to do something, and in particular, there was some activity in the Senate just yesterday. The Senate Commerce Committee marked up a number of bills around online safety, but then also some around AI-powered toys, some other things. It's notable that while that happened yesterday, Senator Cruz, who is the chair of the Senate Commerce, Science, and Technology Committee, just last week said there are a number of larger AI and AI education bills that he had wanted to address yesterday, but they're still sort of figuring out some of the complex issues that are addressed by those pieces of legislation. We've talked about them here, the NSF AI Education Act, some others, and he said that he hopes to mark those up in September. So while Congress isn't doing as much as those of us who support those pieces of legislation would like, there's still some time before the end of this Congress for them to do something. But as I said, in the meantime, the states are going at it. And they are, this number 77, I suspect, is a lowball number just because states define AI differently. Maybe there's lots of other different bills going on out there that didn't come up in the search. But for those of you who are in Idaho or Virginia or Ohio, you know that those states have enacted pretty significant pieces of AI education legislation this year. And they are addressing the things that are complicated, and maybe federal intervention isn't the thing that should be happening there. But, talking about AI literacy, defining AI literacy in some instances, curriculum standards. Should there be standards around AI education? What are the interactions of AI and computer science instruction where that exists? A professional development is something that we hear over and over again. Teachers need to learn how to use this technology in the classroom for teaching, for their own professional tasks, discernment, using it for differentiated instruction in the classroom, all those sorts of things that have promise but need professional development for that promise to produce. And of course, the privacy issues are top of mind for everybody. What kind of data is being collected about students and others who are using it? Who controls that data? There's certainly, and even in yesterday's markup in the Senate, there's still very much concern about social media companies and what it is that they are learning about students, how they're using the technology for good, or but sadly for bad sometimes, and how to prevent that as much as they can. And then human oversight for high stakes decisions, of course, is crucial to all of these things. You all know, because we've talked about it repeatedly here, the White House is very interested in AI education, and they have considered and have written executive orders. They've also talked about trying to support any sort of preempting any state level action on AI, all things that we should be paying attention to as part of this community. So for those of you who are monitoring those bills, continue to do that, but also there are states that are putting together plans on implementation, on curriculum, other efforts, and keeping track of what's going on at the state levels. So talking a little bit more about AI literacy and what it is, it's certainly broader than just using the tools. I suspect we all talk to our colleagues about how we're using them for good, getting tips from each other on how to use them on prompts, et cetera. The same is happening in schools. We need to help students understand how to use AI, but we also need to make sure that teachers are using it, and that teachers are learning how to use AI. We also need to be, I would argue that the knee-jerk reaction to cheating concerns are short-sighted. I think we need to really be thinking about, what it says here, prompt use, how to be more productive, the risks. So certainly discernment is part of the challenge in teaching and using AI, as are the cheating concerns. But I wouldn't want to focus on the cheating at the expense of the promise of using it. And for those of you in the ed tech world, you certainly are facing these challenges as well. How to develop products that are innovative and helping students learn, but keeping in mind the pitfalls of bias and privacy, responsible use, and other issues. And then lastly, this is sort of a combo of federal and state work that's happening right now. If you don't already know this, the Department of Education has offered states flexibility on using the federal money that they receive under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. A number of states have taken advantage of that. There's a link in the chat detailing some of those states' efforts and their success. I think that if you're, a lot of those requests do address Title IV Part A, which is the Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grant Program, where a lot of STEM funds are spent locally. I would pay attention to what your state is proposing to do with those funds. And then over at the Labor Department, states are seeking WIOA waivers, the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act waivers, and these work together, or can and should. And I think that we see that in the administration's efforts to move a number of Department of Education programs to the Labor Department. We need to be paying attention to how K-12 and higher ed investments are dovetailing with the workforce investments at the Department of Labor. There are opportunities here. It combined, getting access to different funds, getting some of the work that we've supported, some more support and attention at the state level. But there are certainly risks. Now you're sort of, if your state is taking an approach where they want to bundle all those funds together, now you're competing with lots of other priorities. Different states have different capacity to take advantage of these waivers waivers. I would pay attention to what your state is doing. And these flexible funding windows can sneak up on you, so you really need to pay attention to what's going on. So, as I said, while I provide this information, I know that for those of you who are paying attention to these programs and the opportunities they present, it might sound like I'm giving you a lot of homework to do, and I apologize for that. But that's the name of the game these days. So if you're paying attention to the opportunities that are out there to support your work or the issues that you care about, you need to identify the programs that can do that, who's making the decisions about them at the federal, state, and local level. You need to translate what you're doing in a way that connects to the goals of those programs. You need to make the relationships, if you don't already have them, with the folks who are making those decisions. Maybe they don't know about your program and how it connects to their goals. And it's important that they do. And from an AI perspective, sort of audit the tools that you're using or want to use and how they're working or not. And then look for coalitions. We have hundreds of people on this call, thousands of people in this community who care about the same things you do, but maybe think about new partners. If you haven't reached out to a community college in your area and see what they're doing that you both care about, then do that. And then, bottom line here is you need to figure out who your allies are and get together a plan.
Well, so Holly, we are incredibly excited to have you here today, and we'll turn the floor over to you.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I'm going to do 20 slides in 5 minutes, so hang on.
Oh,
Just
let
hang
me
on,
be
everybody.
clear. Let me be clear, Holly. I am positive that you have many friends in our community. There are even people in the chat who are already excited to hear what you have to say. So we are willing to stay on for a little extra time to listen to the full presentation. And please do not feel that you are rushed. This is a really great opportunity for us.
I used to teach middle school. I talk really fast anyway. No, it's all good. All right, hang on, everybody. Here we go. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I am Holly Miller. I'm the Federal Liaison for NASA's Office of STEM Engagement, and our office has the charge to prepare students for tomorrow's aerospace workforce. So today I wanted to talk with you not only about how we are preparing students to be ready to join NASA and our partners, but how we're preparing students to be AI ready as well. And let me start by giving you an overview of how NASA has been using AI. In the last few years, a lot of us have gotten hip to AI through ChatGPT and other agents. NASA has been using AI for decades. Since the very start of our agency, we have been charged with making the impossible possible, and artificial intelligence has been part of that journey. We use AI to help analyze massive volumes of scientific data, enable spacecraft to navigate autonomously. We use it for human spaceflight missions and so much more. So that brings me to what I wanted to talk about today. While NASA continues to advance our mission using AI, we also have the charge to prepare today's students to become the next generation of engineers, scientists, and problem solvers who will carry this work forward. And right now, teachers and universities and families are all navigating the exciting and frankly, sometimes scary rise of AI in education and our young people. On the one hand, AI does bring extraordinary benefits to education. It can personalize learning in ways we've never used before, help students access support specific to their needs. It can spark creativity and make researching easier. For many students, it is becoming a powerful tool that builds confidence and extends their learning in and beyond the classroom. But on the other hand, we have to acknowledge the potential risks that it brings to learning. And when our students are not the drivers of AI, but passenger princesses, I feel like that's where some of the issues can arise. We know that they use AI for cheating. Like a lot of my students, when I was in the classroom, they openly acknowledged, of course I am, everybody else is. And so it's faster, it's easier, it makes sense. But when they stop developing critical thinking skills, it can undermine students' ability to reason and judge and solve problems on their own. And I always compare it to the calculator use. Since I used to teach math, I would say, yes, of course, it's a tool. You can use it to cheat, but what will happen when you don't have that tool? Then what happens? Just think about that. The other thing that's on my mind is there are a lot of entry-level jobs that are being replaced by AI. And what does this mean for our students? What jobs and skills cannot be replaced? And how do we fit into the workforce in the future when AI entry jobs means that AI and automation tools take over these repetitive, routine, and foundational tasks that historically kind of were the way that students and new workers would enter the workforce and learn the ropes. A lot of that is gone now, and the shift has transformed into hiring practices that demand immediate AI fluency, and it just shrinks the pool of traditional entry-level positions. And so again, I'll reference my time as a teacher. When I taught 6th grade integrated STEM, my students would talk about what they wanted to be, and I would say a lot of the jobs of their future had not even been created yet. And how are you supposed to prepare them for that? Because there are knowledge, skills, and abilities that we have to develop, durable skills that have to be used across disciplines. And so how do we as STEM leaders guide our students? I think as STEM leaders, we are stewards of how students learn and how they will enter and navigate the workforce. And there are challenges that we just cannot ignore. And the challenges that NASA wants to tackle head on. And we are thinking about those risks, not only how AI impacts youth, but how AI will impact our future aerospace workforce. Research tells us that experiential learning or hands-on learning remains one of the most effective ways for students to learn. And through this experiential learning, students learn how to absorb new information, how to solve problems, how to learn from failure. And I will just insert right here, this is why I have always been a huge proponent for out-of-school time programs, because kids have access to tinkering and what I called thinkering, patent pending, and iterating without the same time constraints and standards that they have to meet in a traditional classroom. And so I love out-of-school time for that very reason. At NASA, we work in environments where we have to have deep technical knowledge, but we also have to have the ability to reason through a challenge, figure out how to work in a team where people are very different than you, and make sense of very complex information. And we only learn that from doing. It is the doing where we develop these skills necessary to be part of a team. So in NASA's Office of STEM Engagement, we create hands-on student work experiences. When they come to NASA, they do projects where they have the opportunity to exercise judgment and practice creativity and strengthen curiosity, all qualities that will be essential for navigating an AI world. They gain core knowledge, they learn by doing and failing, they strengthen their teamwork skills, and they learn to see AI as a tool and not just rely on it blindly. So I want to walk you very quickly through some of the ways that NASA's Office of STEM Engagement is creating some of these work experiences. So we have internships, fellowships, and apprenticeships where students gain real-world experience at the same time directly contributing to NASA's mission. They work alongside professionals who model how to blend technical knowledge, human reasoning, and modern tools, including AI, to solve complex problems. They learn fundamentals first, and then they learn how technologies can extend their abilities. And all of this builds confidence, competence, and a sense of belonging in the aerospace community. I really want to highlight our student challenges and competitions, what they are about. So we want students to work in teams. We want them to design and build and test solutions for real NASA missions. Things like tools and payload and suits and rockets and rover interfaces. And all of these challenges provide hands-on experiential learning. They move through the NASA-style design process. They learn from NASA engineers and subject matter experts. They get so much wonderful exposure, and they are building those durable skills. As for what's happening this season, the first challenges will release as early as next week, open for students, educators, institutions to register and begin preparing. All of these things are through STEM Gateway. A lot of the challenges culminate in a showcase or a testing event at a NASA center. And we aim to serve a wide range of learners, high school teams, community colleges, MSIs, HBCUs, grad students, undergrad. We really want broad access to NASA opportunities. Some of ours that you may have heard about are HERC, Student Launch, Micro-G Next, Suits, Orbits, Lunabotics. We have lots of them. And then finally, I just need to talk about that we have really shifted a lot of our focus into the skilled technical workforce. So when I say that, I mean things like welders, electricians, fabricators. We realize that most students, when they think of NASA, assume astronaut, rocket scientist, hard pass, not for me. But there are so many more opportunities at NASA, and there is a place for everyone in space, including skilled technicians. And we would not launch Artemis around the moon if we did not have this technical workforce, because space is hard. And so we are strengthening pathways for students to enter into these roles right now. We have a strong emphasis on career and technical education. We are looking for students who like to work with their hands, or for whatever reason have not decided upon a four-year college degree path, that's not for them. And so there are lots of other opportunities. They're high-paying, high-demand jobs. You can come right out of high school and do things like trade schools, community college, apprenticeship. We are just about ready to launch our brand new NASA State Hub initiative, which is designed to accelerate students into the skilled technical workforce in aerospace. And we are definitely taking an ecosystem approach to solving these challenges. So be on the lookout for lots more CT offerings coming from NASA OSTEM in the days ahead. And that's pretty good for me. I did it.
Thank you so much, Holly. We really appreciate you being here. I know we had limited time today, everyone. Thank you all for hanging in there with us. For those who want to stay on for an extra 30 seconds, I want to pass it over to Anita to talk about a special event coming up at the end of August.
Sure. Thanks everyone for hanging on there. And Jenny, I don't know if you can pop that slide up, or maybe somebody can put the link in the chat, but I'm delighted. You've just heard about the amazing things that happen in after-school programs for young people. And so I just want you all to be aware that the After School Alliance is releasing our America After 3 p.m. STEM special report on August 26th at an in-person event in DC. This is a large household survey that we carry out every 5 to 6 years, talk to about 30,000 parents across the country, of which about half of them answered questions about STEM, specifically about their child's experience in after-school programs around STEM learning, what parent hopes and dreams and expectations and satisfaction levels are, what their priorities are. So a lot of really, really rich data. And of course, Leslie and I are biased since we worked on this report, but I think it is an incredibly interesting report with data that is going to shape our priorities and work going forward for the next several years. So if you're in the area, please do join us. There will also be state level data that is released when the findings are finally made public on August 26th. So join us.
Thank you for joining us for this insightful discussion on the policy landscape affecting STEM education and workforce development. We hope you've gained valuable perspectives and actionable strategies from our conversations. We'll continue this important dialogue with critical insights about top STEM priorities and more guidance on navigating the current advocacy landscape. To learn more about the work of STEM Education Coalition, After School STEM Hub, and STEM ecosystems, please visit our websites. Until next time, keep advocating for a strong STEM education and workforce nation.